Hey everybody, Sandy here. Today we're working on a 20-ounce skinny straight that I have prepped with Rust-Oleum 2x white matte or flat paint, and then I have spray painted it with glow-in-the-dark spray paint. And the idea that I saw on a TV show that I was watching. It came from the series Outpost. I may have mentioned several times before that we are very much into the medieval type of shows and movies and whatnot. But I saw this in a segment of the show and I was like, oh, light bulb. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be, well, I should put this down here. Here, would you hold this brass brat? I'm going to be using Crayola air dry clay. For the most part, I don't use this when I'm doing any kind of sculpting because it shrinks and it cracks, and it's, you know, I prefer polymer clay. However, for what it's going to take to do this, I feel like the air dry clay is going to be just fine because little cracks are actually going to add to the essence. You like that? The essence. So I'm going to get this open. I think I'm going to get it open. Oh. And I keep a wet paper towel in here just to keep the clay malleable so it doesn't dry out. I have glitter on me. What in the heck? That's not going to matter in this. Oh, I've got pieces of paper towel stuck to this too. All right. Throw that back over top. And I've got, I don't know, about a palm size piece of clay. And I am just working it up right now. So while I'm doing that, let me just say welcome or welcome back. And I'm so glad that you've joined us. Just get that warmed up, and I'm going to need parchment paper, which yes, I still have some down here. I'm going to use parchment paper to, let me see, I'm going to need a sizable piece because I am going to flatten this baby out somewhat. Set my cup on there. I'll move Brat. I don't know if that's what I'm naming him, but that's what I've been calling him. Okay, I'm just going to roll this kind of into a log. And let me just see if this, I'm not going to hurt anything if that sits on there. Let me see if this goes around here. Because if it does, we're in business. We do something with a little bit of sense here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Turn it upside down so it doesn't keep rolling up on me. And I'm going to place this here because when we flatten this out, and I'm going to get my roller, which I should have had beforehand, and I didn't. Nothing like starting a video totally unprepared, right? All right. Now, I'm going to start there, and I'm going to wrap this up around and hope for the best. It's not going to hurt anything if it doesn't stick in some spots, because I'm going to smush it down anyway. And as you can see, we don't have quite enough, but I think once some trimming has been done, we'll be able to just piece that in there. I also don't like the way the air dry clay feels. It's cold, it's sticky, and ugh, that's just not my thing. Okay, we have some here that we can trim off, and we're going to pull some around. Like I said, I don't want this thick. And I don't want this part to have to take me forever to do. I do want it textured. Let me just, oops, let me get, oopsie poopsie, I'm knocking stuff all over the place here. Cut it off. Cut it off. I don't believe, whoops, I'm 9 miles away from you. There, I'm just cutting this with my X-Acto knife. And I'm going to smush the edge down here because I don't want to contend with that when it comes time for cleanup. Okay, and I really don't want the clay inside of the cup either. There. And as you can see, I'm just mushing it and smushing it. And if this comes out the way it seems like it will in my head, that's always up for interpretation. I think this is going to be a really cool piece. And it's still going to be functional because it's not going to have that thick of a, well, I'm going to say sculpted, but, you know, the additional layer here, it's not going to be that thick, so it'll still be pretty functional. I know some of the 3D tumblers tend to be a little on the cumbersome side to hold if they are thicker. I know this because I have some that I've been told, well, that's good for a collection, but daily use, no. And I get it. Okay, I'm just stretching that around, filling in that piece. Whoops, knocked a little bit off. If I have to grab a little bit out of the container, I will. And it takes a while for this to dry. It should be dry in a day, about 24 hours, considering, you know, things like air temperature, airflow, how thick it is. So, you know, that's subject to its surroundings. Okay, I may have to go around that and give that a good trim. Now, for the most part, I think I'm going to do most of the forming with my hands. I don't anticipate having to do too much carving and layering and all that. But if you know, if you want to take wax paper I feel like wax paper works better with this than the parchment paper, but that's what I had in my studio here. If you want to use wax paper and wrap that around it and put texturing in, you can texture this with a sponge or whatever you have at your disposal. A wadded up piece of paper that's not too sharp to go through, I think would be just fine. You're going to see I'm going to start to shape this edge of it. And I'm not going to put all of my texture in until I get this part of it where I want it. If you find that your clay is getting dried a little too much to manipulate it, then you can use a wet paper towel and just kind of, you know, pat it and give it a little more moisture to be able to move it. I'm trying to move really quickly. And this segment is not, it's not etched in stone. Pretty much we can do what we want to do. Again, nobody tell us any different. I'm just trying to keep the edges into the cup. I don't want any surprises. I don't like the way that feels on my fingers. Some of you are probably thinking, couldn't you do this with a drip method? I would imagine you could. I don't know about the shaping. I don't know how well the shaping would work for you. I got a bubble in there that I don't want, and I don't want to have to chase it all over. There, he's gone. That's the other thing. You do want to make sure that you try not to leave a bubble, because that's going to be a weak spot. And depending on how much epoxy you put on here is going to depend on just how strong that hold is. Do you understand what I'm saying? That, you know, if there is a pocket, is it going to give if your epoxy is not strong enough? So we're almost there. Almost. Let's see, where's our longest one? Right there. I think we need to try to offer up a long one down here. I hope it's not too hard to differentiate between the clay and the cup. From the angle that I'm looking, it's hard for me to tell. And I don't know if you can hear that little tiny hoof in the background. My little pitter, she hears me talking. But she's such a little chicken. She won't always just come out here. And I only leave the door open when I'm not doing epoxy at the moment. But she definitely has something to say out there. Okay. All right, now that's what we've got so far. We do have a little bit of a thicker edge here, but I think once it gets pushed around a little bit and gets textured a little bit, I think it'll even itself out. I'm going to close this up because I don't want the clay on the bottom of it, but I do want to set it down here. All right. That all being said, I'm digging out some tools. But let me reiterate, you don't need to use tools. I have this broken, well, it was a cake decorating tool for when I did fondant. And I want to just put in some markers. Part of it. And I'm just cutting out a rough, well, I'm going to call it a window. Not really a window, just a hole. But I've squared it off. And rather than scratch up my paint underneath, I'm going to use this old orange peeler and just kind of clean off the surface and press in those raw edges a little. I don't even know that I can get a picture of what I'm seeing in my head from the show. But if you've watched it, you might realize where I got this idea from. And it's, I can't even tell you what season. I'm not even sure if there was more than one season. But there's this one segment in the show that there are what they call the gods all gathered around some, I don't know, wheel apparatus or something, where they all join their powers and are supposed to be able to take over and whatever. And as, I don't know, something gets done and these lights start to come on the upper part of, on the ceiling of, I don't think it's a cave, I think it's a castle. And these things are, these lantern type things are hanging down. And I saw them and I went, oh, okay, Tumbler. And so, yep, that's where I pulled that from. There. There. My point to this is, when this glows, I want these to glow as well. And I'm just smoothing them out. Let's see. We need maybe one more over here. I think we'll do a long one. A long, skinny one. See if we can fit this in there. I think we can. Should have done that with all the other ones. It worked out really well. Okay. And smush down, smush down, smush down. Smush it in a little because I really would like it to be somewhat inconspicuous. Why? I don't know. That's just what I want. Okay. All right. And for the most part, that's what we've got. And that's why I'm going to leave it and let it dry. But, okay, so that's what we have so far. When we come back, this will be dry. And we will go ahead and paint or accent with color of some sort. I think I want to leave this like a sand color, but this is going to dry fairly white, I think. Can't remember. It's been a little while. So anyway, that's what we've got. We will be back with our next step. Stay tuned. Our clay is dry. It did crack in several places. In fact, you can see one of the cracks right here that wants to continue to crack, but I know it's done now. What I did is I made a slurry with some clay and water and basically just made it like a very thick paint. And I painted on over top of the cracks just to keep the integrity of the clay on the tumbler. Now, what I've done is I have mixed two acrylic paints. One is light brown, and I have no idea where I got this. If you recognize it, great. It was either Michael's, Hobby Lobby, or Walmart, one of them. And this I got at Walmart, and this is called Linen, and it's by Folk Art. So I wanted something that was going to be sort of a reddish sand color. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint that on here. We're going to clean up any that we get inside of our little spaces here. And then once that's dry, I'm thinking I'm going to accent with this Black Flash Color Shift by Folk Art. It has a nice gold black color to it. I really do like this. So I'm hoping I'm going to do some brush on accents. Brush on meaning that I might just use a makeup sponge. All that said, let's get into this. It's pretty self-explanatory as far as what I'm doing here, so I'm going to hush up and I'm just going to get it done. Okay, we are finished painting this layer. I'm going to go in with a Q-tip, and I'll show you that in a second, and clean up the inside areas there. Now, when this paint dries, it's going to dry darker than what we put on there. No big deal. Then we're going to swipe this on with a makeup sponge. So I'm going to show you how I clean up the inside. I got to grab a cotton swab here. There we go. Let me see. I just dipped it in some water that I have over to the side here for my paintbrushes, but it's clean. All right. And I'm just going to clean up a little bit in there. Okay, I'm not too concerned with the bottom part here. I do have one little spudging mark there that I'm not crazy over. Get that cleaned off. Okay, so we're going to let this dry, and then when we come back, we'll swipe this after this is dried. Stay tuned. Our paint has dried. And I'm going to be using our night or our black flash color shift. I can't tip it because it'll pour. I've opened it. There's paint in the top of the lid. What I'm going to be using to apply it, because I can't find my makeup sponges. Why do I do this to myself? I'm going to be using this. It's like a magic eraser, but I think I got it from the dollar store. And there's the package. So I've cut off a small piece of this, and we're going to go ahead and get our night flash, our black flash on that. I want to call it night flash. Yeah, I already got it on my fingers because I was trying to do stuff and I hit the jar. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting this onto my tumbler. Now I'm satisfied. As you can see, I didn't even have to go back in and get the rest of this. So it took nothing. And if you're wondering why did I want to do that, I hope you can see on this paper towel the shininess of that black paint. There's gold in there, and I would like for this to shimmer, and it does. So I think that's a good accent for it. Okay, this is going to dry. I'm going to epoxy this, and then we'll come back. I think I want to do some things down here in this section that glows in the dark. I'm not looking to put decals on here, but I do want to put a little bit of accent in here just to give it some depth. So we'll be back and we'll get into that with our epoxy. Here we are. Our paints have all dried. We're going to go into epoxying this tumbler, mainly the bottom part for right now, because what I want to do is I've got some epoxy that's mixed up here with some mica powder. Now, I don't know the name of this mica powder. I wish I did, because I would love to buy more of it. It did not come with a list of the names, but it looks brownish, but it has a green hue to it. It kind of flashes between brown and green, and I love it. And I have yet to be able to find what the name of this is. If anybody out there, once I get it on here and you see how it reacts, if you know the name of it, please, please put it in the comments. I would love to buy a truckload of it, because it is my favorite. I also have here let me just quick show you the packaging. I don't know if you can see that green tint to it or not, but that's the package it came in. No name. I also am going to be using, because this part is glow in the dark, I'm going to be using some glow in the dark powder that I put in a little tiny bit of resin that I've got mixed up, and this one's called Kelly, the color of it. And I'm only going to do little spots, you'll see. But this came in a set of glow in the dark powders that I got from Amazon. I don't even think there was a name. Terrible with names here. Okay, so that all being said, I am going to get myself set up here and ready to run this resin, and I will click back in as soon as I'm all set. And I'm going to be quiet, and you can just go along for the ride. Okay, there's been 2 coats of epoxy put on this. Now, when you add things to your tumbler, whether it's vinyl, water slides, or clay, you always run the risk of there being bubble spots where the resin will get in and blow bubbles back out, because it has to fill in that gap. As careful as I was, I wound up with bubble spots. Now, these were just little tiny bubble spots when I did the first coat of resin. I cleaned them up and inspected it, and it looked like it was good. However, it wasn't. So now I had to clean this out as best I could. Did I get it right down to the cup? No, I didn't. So we may still have a little bit of a fog area there. I'm not going to worry about it. but I do need to plug where I found little bitty tiny, I mean, just the toothpick doesn't even go in there, but it's a very tiny hole, and it seems like it must have had a vein that ran down through. And so then there's another itty bitty tiny pinhole down here that caused a good sized bubble. I didn't catch them in time, blah, blah, blah. We all know the deal. So what I am going to do is I have my UV resin, and I'm going to put a little bit on. I have a piece of contact paper over on the side here. I'm just going to put a teeny tiny little bit, and I use this paper for everything, but a little tiny dot of it right there. And I'm going to run my toothpick in there, and I am going to cover that hole. And this is going to be a two-step deal because I'm going to attempt to plug the holes, and then I'm going to fill the rest of the void in with more UV resin. But I want to address these pinholes first, and they'll set up a lot quicker if I don't just pile the UV resin in there. And I think that will help to remedy that little problem, because I really hate for this to have to be a throwaway or a strip. So, all right, I've got that on there. I'm going to move my UV resin out of the way. I am going to set my paper under here because I want to be able to see when that spot is cleared on here. I want to be able to see when that is nice and solid. So let me figure out where I'm going to put this little toothpick because I really don't want it to make a mess everywhere. And I have 2 large tumblers. These are 30 ounces. So it helps for my UV lamp to sit up above my cup. And that's what I'm going to do there, so that it's not touching, but it is making contact there. And I'm going to set it at 60 seconds. Yes, I still have the plastic on here because gunk gets on here. I don't want to do that. I'm going to set it at 60 seconds to begin with, and then we'll go accordingly as I test the bottom piece. It's just that sometimes these things happen and there's just nothing we can do that, you know, once it's happened, you just have to stay at it. And that's what I'm doing. Like I said, I am going to fill in those little divots. Would have been set in like 10 seconds, but I want you to see that we're set there. I am going to let this run a little bit longer. I want to make sure that it really has permeated. But then I will go on to do my next coat of resin on this, and hopefully we'll be ready to show you the cool effects on this. And I know what you see is not that exciting, but it gets more exciting. So when we check back in, this tumbler should be done.